Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Stott's Fine Art. We're going to continue on this little landscape on the 24 by 30 textured canvas. And I think we finished up with this barn mostly. Had a little bit to do here with the little loft door, but I think I'm pretty much through with the surfaces. I was maybe going to do some more with the roof, but I kind of like how that's going. I put a bit of a glaze over the first couple of layers, and I like that. I like the way that looks, so I'm just going to go with that. And so I'm going to focus in, before we finish the whole thing, I'm going to focus in just this little quadrant, lower right hand quadrant, and just complete that. It shouldn't take too terribly long, and then the next phase, next video, I'll come up and finish the whole thing. I have found in teaching and also in my own painting, came through teaching, sometimes if you take some small part of the painting to a finished level before you develop and finish the whole painting, you get a small part of it finished quicker, and I think it's kind of encouraging to students to see where you're heading, because a lot of painting is not meant to be a finished. A lot of strokes, a lot of layers aren't meant to be a finished painting. They're just a stepping stone to get to the finish, and I think that's what younger painters, newer painters, maybe don't understand. And so we've done our legwork here. We've got some nice layering. So I'm going to work on just a little bit of sky. We're going to introduce some blue into this, and we're going to leave a little bit of a gold horizon there, a little bit of warmth, somewhat like the sun was maybe heading down. And I want to show you also how to use that wash of blue to come over and soften by glazing over, by softening some of these edges, softening some of this. And then we're going to come in, we've got some nice layering here. We're going to put a little bit of light right through there. We're not going to go all the way up. We're just going to work right in here. And so we'll get started on that. Let me just start with this foreground. And one thing I like about landscapes is I love that light color going up against the dark shadow, like under a line of background trees. There's always some dark shadow, and then you have light up on this ground, whether it's a golden wheat field or just wild prairie grasses and greens. And you can kind of see on the little piece we're using as a loose model, obviously not the same scene exactly. This let me just walk over there and point it out to you. This part right over here, I love the this part of the landscape. You've got some light on the grasses here, and that soft transition line from light into the dark shadow right in through here. And I like to keep that very soft. It's in the distance, and we want to create that depth, that illusion of depth. And I think that the illusion of depth is really one of the number one things I'm trying to do in the landscape. So let's mix up a little bit of color here. Let me find the right brush. This ought to work. And I'm going to mix just kind of a light olive type green. I've got some hooker's green here, And as I start to paint this, I'm going to zoom up on it so you can see a little more of the detail here in just a second. So let me just mix some paint, some hooker's green, some white, and I like to, in my palette, I use a lot of raw sienna underneath, and then to get a little more earthy, organic green than just that bright green. And I could use a little, you can use a little yellow ochre in that also. Or white. Now, when I mix acrylic, I just use a brush to mix it. And I don't like to use a knife. I use a knife with oil. Acrylic dries so fast, you end up with a palette knife if you're mixing with a giant ball of acrylic dried paint on it. So sometimes when we mix, I get a little more paint than I want. I'll try to take some of it off here, but then I always have the a rag to regulate that. Yeah, okay, let me reach up there and zoom that in. There you go. See the painting a little better. Now, I want to do this fairly dry brush right in here because I want a soft edge. If I, well, let me start with just a little, take a lot of that off, and then right in here, you see we've already got the shadow in there, so just want to dry brush in. Takes, you know, we've done a lot of the work already, just getting it ready. Look how easy that is, but it just takes a light touch. You've got to get your just the right amount of paint, not too much, and you work across there. You see we're creating that where the light, this field is out in, getting a little more light. We've got more shadow. That tree is somewhat backlit also, so those are somewhat silhouetted. Get a little more light out here, and again, I take some artistic license. Sometimes in sundown type backlit situations, you won't see that much light on the ground, but I like to create that edge, soft edge. So anyway, I'll go across that much where I'm zoomed in, and then down in here, I'm tempted, just some of this looks pretty good. I like the way that those layers are, but probably won't make all that go away. Now something else too, if you get a little aggressive and you decide, oh, I got too much paint, you can just take it right off. So I'm trying to dry brush and say I get just too much paint on there, and I decide, oh, I've got, you know, I've just got a hard edge there. I want it soft. I want that to just kind of transition softly. You always just can lift some. So acrylic. Kind of play with it while I'm erasing it. Let's see what might come up with that. So I'll take a little more off. Sometimes I have to hit it a couple of times to get all the residue of the paint off. And then you can also play around with the consistency, you know, just add some water to it and grind it in. It's a little different way. You can use both methods or just one or the other, so you thin that down. And I'll usually let that set just a minute or two. I won't go as long as normal. I'll let it set just a bit. Maybe fan it a little. Get it to set up just a bit. Just this area. And then you can always, just showing ways you can go back and forth with an acrylic. So take some of that off maybe. You've got that option, so take it. It's very user friendly. Take a little more off here. And I just kind of go by instinct as I see this develop. Yeah, I'll just play with it, see what I think looks best. Maybe take a little off. I really like some of this, what's going on here. I'm not sure I really want to cover that up, so just up here create a bit of light. And I'm kind of liking, I'm looking at the color also, the value. I wanted a lighter value, but the color, I like some of these underlying golds, yellows, and I don't have as much of that in this top layer, so I'm curious. So this, yeah, I'm just giving you my thoughts. That's how I teach, is giving students my thoughts, like what am I thinking, why am I changing, why am I going back and forth. It's you know, you see things as an artist, and you got to learn to trust your instincts, and that's painting. Okay, so maybe a little more yellow on that. You'll see this. See how that kind of pulls it in a little bit better with that. I think I like that a little better than that first layer, the layer of green just prior to this. Now you can also now normally I would just work all the way across, just to abbreviate it a little bit. Again, we're going to work right in here. So now something else, you can also, if you want to tie some of these colors into these trees, just come up here and touch those trees a little bit. See how it ties it together. You never know how a painting's going to look till you get more of the elements, especially the elements adjacent to each other. They affect each other, and so a lot of times in a so I'm finishing a painting, working on the foreground, I'll like the some of this color better than my first colors when I first put those in, so you don't need to particularly redo everything. Just take a little of this color and just touch it up a bit, just a little bit will tie that right in. Sometimes they just clash a little, and you want to tie them together. Okay, touch in here. Let me do one thing too. A lot of times these old rural scenes, especially down in South Texas, and see them in Oklahoma too, some bluebonnets, and it's an impressionistic piece. So I'm not going to take I'm not going to take a little script brush and do every little dot of bluebonnets. That would be somewhat of a different style. I'd be a little more photorealistic, and I want to keep this style loose. And so let's do a little demo of just laying in, how you lay in some wildflowers, just kind of quickly, without taking forever to put in. A lot of times those bluebonnets, you come up over a hill, say around Houston. Used to go to Houston for a lot of shows. I love Houston. It's a great town in the woodlands, and you'd top a little hill and you just see this in the springtime, this blanket of blue, and it didn't look like millions of bluebonnets. It looked like one organism. It was just so solid from a distance, and it was just shockingly beautiful, shocking blue. So I'll just do, instead of this whole thing, some things I'll do the whole field in blue, and those are popular. And I'm going to mix some cobalt blue here, and I'm going to dry brush in a little bit, and I always use 2 layers. This first layer will look fine, and it'll be still a little wet for a minute, and it'll have a little sparkle to it. As it dries, that first layer gets a little flat, so you come back with a little bit of lighter blue, give it some light on it. So let me make sure I got just the right amount. Okay, so we've got a little bluebonnet patch. It's a little too much paint there. See how it's a little heavy? I wanted it broken up a little more. Now you see how these ridges separate it, breaks it up for you. And I got a little heavy there, but it's acceptable. So you got a field of bluebonnets just up against that barn, and then maybe it breaks down here. Maybe there's a little path, but it picks up a little bit over here. Okay, now that looks pretty good, but as it dries, it does blue gets a little flat, it loses a little of its that wet sparkle. So all I do is take a little white with that same mixture and just lighten it. And I think you'll like this. Just real light touch of light over that slightly darker blue. You see how that gives it some dimension, so the third dimension. So a little more light on top over here. Do you see how easy that is? One thing tell my students, and again, a lot of them are beginning, and of course, if they stick with me, they're not beginners anymore. They learn to paint pretty good, and I hope they learn to paint better than me. That's as a teacher, It's a thrill to see students come along and surpass you, actually. That's okay, so you see the light over dark, and you don't need to do the whole thing. You can if you want. Make it almost an abstract foreground. But a lot of times you just see these patches down South Texas way. And okay, so we've got nice little finish here, other than I wanted some blue in this sky. So let me mix up some. It'll probably take 2 or 3 layers, and I probably won't go all the way up here. I'm just going to kind of work in this area, and then we'll come next video, we'll finish it, get the whole thing. So if you look at the blue in that, well, I don't know if you can see it now with it zoomed up, but there's a it's basically blue and white. And then I don't just love colors right out of the tube. I do for flowers, things that are really bright, and you want them to be bright, but a lot of these pastoral scenes, they're in the distance. There's some atmosphere over them. They're kind of muted back a little, and that muting, though, of the general painting is what makes the bright areas bright when you want something bright. And so that's why I like to keep it somewhat muted and minimal tonal. But I usually put a little bit of raw sienna, see if you can see that in there, and that just even mutes the sky back just a bit. Gonna need a little more white. Okay, now I want to wet this down, because I'm going to kind of overlap a little of these trees, and that puts a softness to those edges. And you'll see when I do that. That's how I get part of that atmospheric style that my work is known for. And it's just how I like to paint. I was in Santa Fe taking some work over to Arlene Siegel Gallery. They were in my gallery for many years. They're retired now, but I'd bring new work, replace the sold work, and just loved to walk the other galleries and see what was up. And I'd always see something that would be inspiring, and I saw an oil painter, and he had done a very soft oil painting. It was just a foreground, kind of a high foreground, and a sky, and a lot of layering, and just some dark, soft, unfocused, thick line spots that looked just like, distant line of trees. And it was so soft, it was really somewhat expressionistic, rather than impressionistic. But I just loved it. I loved the softness and the depth. So I started incorporating that in my acrylics, and one way to get that is to wash over things. And I'll show you a little bit. Now, just pretend like this is the top of the canvas. I'll be going over that more in the next video, but right in here, bringing this blue in, and I want some of the I'm going to let that top just kind of fade out. I want some of that underpainting to show through, and again, you do that a couple of ways. One is you just skip an area, let some of it show through. Another way is to thin your paints down into a wash, to where they're very thin. You can see pretty thin. You can see it coming through. Now, even though I've got some somewhat finished edges here, I'll still go over it, like even here. See how that ghosts that in. Looks like it's just going back in time. Now I kind of like these surfaces here, so I don't think I want to mess with them too much. I'll do more to the tree here. So what you can do, if you decide, well, I don't want that much of that blue on there, just come back in again, just take it off. And you know, I also want some of the gold to be exposed, so you can take that off. See how you get a nice soft transition. I am going to let some of the blue stay over the top of those trees though, so let's see what we can do with that. You can go up as high as you want, because I've redo some areas. Again, if you want more of this gold, just take it off twice maybe to see how that brings back that original. And takes a little while. You just manipulate it. Now I'm going to go back into that. Now along these trees, I am going to in fact, I'll go quite a bit just for an example. Look how much you can fog out those. Now, you don't really want to make them go away completely, but just for example's sake, so you create that atmosphere over it. Now, as that dries, that will bleed forward even more. And I'm not really looking to finish this with that much atmosphere over it, where it's just, although you could, it would make a nice painting, but I want to let more of that underpainting survive. So before that completely dries, see how I can bring it back somewhat, and then up here, I'm not going to clean it perfectly. I'm going to leave. So you're using that sky as also a wash or a glaze as atmosphere. And maybe get a little bit over here. And I'm just kind of playing. I don't really want this line to hopscotch over everything. You know, I want more of a straight line, which is what naturally it would be, realistically. So, as I play with this, bring some of that back, and at this point I'm just kind of playing with it, trying to decide what I want to do. I think that's painting, you know, not everything is perfectly sure. You have to play with it a little, so I think I'm going to bring that down a little more, but I'm not going to go over that roof of the farmhouse too much. I'm going to keep it fairly defined, and the trees are you know, they could be set back as you're looking across a field. Those could be set back, you know, 100 yards back there. And so maybe I want to exaggerate the depth, and you know, 100 yards wouldn't make that much difference unless it truly was a foggy day. But as far as the atmosphere, but I want to exaggerate it. You know, I want to just force the issue of depth. So I'm going to make those trees. Exaggerate how far back they are. And you can kind of just play around quite a bit with those. You can see now how those are setting back. It's still a little rough. You know, we need to do some more here. And we need to go all the way out here. I'm going to show you a couple more things. Now we need another layer here, and I want more of that underpainting to show through more towards the horizon, not so much up high here. So I'll usually go a little more opaque and a little darker. As you get up in the sky, it gets deeper, you know, it gets darker, it's more pale in the horizon typically. Okay, so I'll put a little water in there to help it flow. A little more of the raw sienna blue. Okay, so again, you're going to have to imagine that this is all the way to the top. I'm just trying to abbreviate how much we have to lay, how much area we have to lay paint on. Go a little bit sooner, but yet still take time with the technique. So we just speed it up by reducing the amount of square inches of paint we have to lay down. Again, I'm going to fade that out, feather it out a little bit, so when I finish it, it'll be easier to cover that. If I left a hard edge there and I'm going to cover it, it's just harder. That hard edge would bleed through more than a soft edge. I've always heard it's easier to harden a soft edge than it is to soften a hard edge, and that's a true statement. Okay, I don't know how much you can see on that close-up. You might be able to see up here, but again, we're trying to just finish this area here. Now, one thing too, say, do a little example. Say I decided I wanted more of that golden color on the horizon, you know, to create a feeling of a sundown. And let's say it dried, and I was going to take it off, and it just dried on me. It's very easy to repair and get that back. You just mix up a little bit of opaque color, and we used raw sienna and yellow. So now when you add white, that was not with white in it, you know, so it was more transparent with the water. When you add white, now we want something opaque because we want to knock off that blue, but still white will fundamentally change colors, like say, okay, white and raw sienna, you see it's really more of a beige there. You know, you're losing a little of that bright gold color. So you can put in some yellow or yellow ochre to get that a little more jazz to it, a little more color like this, and some more yellow ochre. And then just depending on how light you want it, add some more white. Okay, now right in here, I can just fix that. I can put get that opaque. White, and there'll be a little bit of work to do down here. You can see some of the details are so you see I'm got back my light, that light source over here. You can do the same thing if you need to. Don't particularly need to, but even around the trees, you know, you can open up some holes in those trees. Now low, you're going to have somewhat of a gold opening. Behind it, up here, it would be more blue. So see if you want to show some light coming through, and it might take a little bit of work to get that just right, but maybe in here, opening that up. Anyway, that's the principle. See how you can just get that right back, and you can go up as far as you want if you decide you want more of that color up there. You can just keep working it and get a little more of a mix of blue and the gold color. Can change, you know, what you just did. You've got that opaque, even though we can use this somewhat transparently, you've got the ability to use it more opaquely, so you can repair things pretty easy. See, I'm just touching it. Some painting strokes aren't strokes, they're just little touches, and you see that's working because I've got a lot of color underneath it. Now I've got the foundation laid. You need to lay a foundation for a painting, just like you're doing a building. I was in the construction business for 30 years and painted as well, and you didn't just go out on a lot of grass and just start laying your brick on that grass and building up. Of course, you started digging, and of course the rule was as soon as you opened up the ground, then it rained, and so then you'd wait and pump water, and eventually you'd dig and get some footings laid and some foundation, and that's what you need on a painting. And we'll do more on that sky next week, and feel like I don't just love that color for some reason. I think I'll lighten it. It's a little dark, but not today. And so you see now, look at the, in fact, let me get that camera down. So I'm still here, painting. Okay, you can see some of these, some of those interesting layers. Almost too close, so let me get back a little. I like to stop as I go across, let the camera really focus in. You can see the layers. There's some of those blue bonnets. See up close, it's just chaos, but further back you get, it starts to come together. Okay, that's enough for today. That went longer than I thought. Just so much good stuff to say and do. So exciting to think. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time and attention. I'm just playing with the Zoom here. And we'll see you next time from Stott's Fine Art. Bye-bye.